What if the life you're living, the beliefs you hold dear, and your roles are all carefully crafted illusions, trapping you in a silent, invisible prison? What if the comfort of your daily routines and the clarity of your goals aren't your freedom, but the chains binding you to a hollow existence? Franz Kafka's works speak to this dilemma between the self and a world that seems designed to smother any true sense of identity. Kafka's stories aren't just tales of strange transformations or faceless authorities. They're hauntingly accurate reflections of how we lose ourselves, surrendering our humanity to rules, obligations, and expectations we barely even understand. In the Metamorphosis, The Trial, and beyond, Kafka explores how individuals desperately cling to illusions of security, self-worth, and purpose while teetering on the edge of isolation and despair. And the most complicated truth Kafka warns us about is this: if you never confront these illusions, you may never truly live. Franz Kafka was born in 1883 in Prague, a city he never really left, even in spirit. But for Kafka, Prague was more than a city. It symbolized oppressive structures and cultural pressures that shaped his view of life. Raised by an overbearing father who expected him to follow in his footsteps as a businessman, Kafka struggled with feelings of inadequacy and guilt, trapped between societal expectations and personal desires. His father's influence loomed over him as a constant judgment, a heavy weight of unmet expectations. This tension deeply colored his worldview, leading him to create characters who felt as he did, trapped, powerless, and unable to escape forces beyond their control. These characters, like us, grapple with the same existential dilemmas, making Kafka's works a mirror of our struggles. By day, Kafka worked in insurance, a job that exposed him to the machinery of bureaucracy and the dehumanizing effects of societal structures, fueling his profound understanding of how these structures crush individuality. This personal backdrop is essential to understanding Kafka because it's woven into every sentence he wrote. His characters face oppressive systems, internal identity, purpose, and worth battles. In the Metamorphoses, Kafka introduces us to Gregor Samsa, a young man who wakes up one morning transformed into a grotesque insect. What's shocking isn't his monstrous form, it's his reaction. Gregor's first thought isn't panic or horror, but concerns about working late. Here, Kafka reveals something disturbing. We often live like Gregor, valuing productivity and responsibility over our sense of self, sacrificing our humanity to fulfill obligations that may mean nothing. We are too busy meeting expectations to question whether they're worth anything. Gregor's transformation is symbolic. Kafka urges us to ask, how much of myself am I giving up living up to other people's standards? If we live in constant fear of disappointing others, our families, bosses, or society at large, we are all in danger of becoming what Gregor becomes. Creatures whose identity and desires are lost to the demands of a merciless world. For Kafka, the lie that ruins lives is the belief that we can find security and meaning by conforming to and becoming what others want us to be. Kafka's The Trial delves deeper into this lie of conformity and compliance with authority. The protagonist, Josef, is suddenly arrested without being told of his crime, setting him on a futile journey to understand the charges against him. He's met only with closed doors, faceless bureaucrats, and layers of nonsensical regulations. Despite the absurdity of his situation, Josef obeys, unable to imagine that he could resist or rebel. Kafka uses this setup to ask a brutal question. How often do we accept things as they are because we're afraid or believe we have no choice? Josef's blind acceptance reflects how we live in a world of unspoken rules and expectations. We're conditioned to accept them without question, assuming there must be a reason, a purpose, or a meaning to it all, even if we can't understand it. For Kafka, this blind obedience to authority and societal norms is the lie we willingly live. We convince ourselves that we are in control and that our lives' rules have logic. But the trial reveals that this so-called control is just an illusion. The more Josef complies, the deeper he is trapped. Kafka's point is that we become our captors, enforcing meaningless rules upon ourselves and others until we cannot imagine any other way to live. Kafka's stories, however bleak, aren't without hope. They offer a glimmer of light in the darkness, hinting at a path from societal pressures and personal isolation. Kafka hints at a path out, acknowledging the absurdity of it all and embracing an inner freedom. For Kafka, the only freedom worth having is facing life as it is without relying on external validation or illusions of security. In his life, Kafka struggled with this idea, attempting to break free from his job, his family's expectations, and even his fear of death. He knew it wasn't easy to live authentically, to see the world for what it is, and still find meaning. But he believed that the first step was honesty, an unflinching look at the illusions we live by. Kafka's message is stark but powerful. The only way to escape society's invisible chains is to embrace the uncomfortable truth that there is no inherent meaning, authority, or predetermined purpose to rely on. This isn't to say that life is empty, but that we create meaning for ourselves, independent of societal roles or expectations. As we close, consider this. Are you living within the life of societal expectations? Like Gregor, Samsa, or Josef K., do you find yourself trapped by unspoken rules and assumptions, giving up parts of yourself for a sense of safety? Kafka pushes us to confront these illusions and question if the security we seek is worth the cost of our identity. True freedom, he suggests, isn't just about breaking from external constraints, it's about facing the uncomfortable truths of existence itself. So ask yourself, are you ready to let go of comforting illusions and embrace a life that is true to you?